This story was written for October 2016 for that year's Halloween Nightmare Night Writing Contest. The author is Maxaxle Starsmith. The title is Thumb. Comedy and tragedy, epic adventures and melodramas, and idle chatter about the local sports teams could be overheard alongside sounds of glasses clinking and crunchy finger food. The air was warm and tinged with the aroma of spicy nachos. So far, the party had been a success, and almost everyone was enjoying themselves. The hostess' attention was on a close friend who was sitting on a couch. "Hey, let me tell you about the time I nearly bought a sports bike," he began. His tale was well crafted, an attention-holding story of lust, multiple attempts at obtaining the object of his desire, and, eventually, the realization that he was not cut out for motorcycle riding. A mix of polite laughter and genuine laughter appeased him when the story was finished. And just as the hostess was about to recount her own story on motorcycle riding, a small amount of alcohol hit the wooden flooring. Everyone backed away for a moment while the hostess' close friend retrieved a napkin from his pocket, and he was able to capture the rogue liquid before it could damage the oak. Just as he finished cleaning up the puddle, however, something caught his eye. It almost looked like a cigar, or an exceptionally thick pen, but shorter. He reached for the object and retrieved it with a mild amount of disgust. If it was a cigar, it was soft. If it was a pen, its rubberized finish had melted. If it was a forgotten piece of food, it had not aged well. His disgust was vaporized by the sheer horror of a realization. The object was a thumb, scorched at the end, that did not have a nail. Holding the thumb away from himself as if it was a pest, and unintentionally scattering the small group around him further, he refrained from revisiting that day's dinner. "What the heck?" he stammered. The hostess paled an entire 2 shades further than anyone else in the small room, and one guest made their hurried, twisting way to the bathroom. The close friend carefully set the finger down on a nearby glass coffee table, with equal parts morbid interest and nausea. After a few seconds of silence, the hostess found herself the center of attention. Everyone in the room was silent, and more than a few mouths went agape. The hostess coolly flicked her hair back and began her explanation. That thumb belonged to someone who thought they could outsmart me. A few glances suddenly reflected fear. Relax, he's still alive. He violated our agreement and tried to tell me that it was never valid. So I followed through and took what was rightfully mine. Allow me to explain. It was a nice summer day. Things were winding down at the office, and I was getting ready to clock out. He bumps into me on my way out the door and puts his hand on my shoulders, tells me he'd like my cooperation on something. I'm about to brush him off when he mentions that he just needs a smooth talker to make a deal go over well. Everyone here knows me, and knows exactly how many deals I've made and broken. So at this point, I suspect that my reputation has preceded me. I ask him how well he knows me, and all he says is that I'm exactly who he's looking for and knows how I like to be compensated. A few minds wandered toward the recent and unusually smooth deals made between OptiWeb and Flyon, Kribu and Alphen Storage, and Puffkey and Raverfly. Without his help, I'd still be living in that old 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. Anyway, he asked me to get my hands on some important information, but he also needed me to do it without being noticed after the fact, so breaking and entering was off the table unless I could disable the security systems without raising a stink. I was tempted to grease some palms and have the info find its way into my hands, but I felt that I could do it better. I took some people out to lunch. I made them relax around me and see me as a friend rather than an industrial spy. In the end, I said what I needed to say and did what I needed to do to make them trust me. And once I had their trust, I secretly betrayed them. The hostess chuckled for a moment. One of them actually caught me taking pictures of a document, and I covered it up by saying the scanner was too hard to use. With the help I needed from certain other people who will go unnamed, I was able to make the deals you've heard so much about. But then that idiot decided that I hadn't given him enough. Suddenly he wanted privileged information that even I didn't have access to. When I told him that I couldn't get my hands on that information, even with my new connections, he told me that he'd tell everyone. The irony is not lost on me now, but at that moment it seemed like a chance for the horse apples to hit the fan. I told him off, and he stopped bothering me for a few days. But then he visited me here, and he had a gun in his armpit. You don't know what I'll do for that information, do you? He told me his retirement plan had fallen through completely due to an oversight on his part, and that he needed more information to pull more strings and get more people to fix his problems. I'm a desperate man. You don't want to test me. I told him to put the gun down, but instead he tried to point it at me and backed me towards the kitchen. He grabbed my favorite knife, the fancy butcher knife, the one I use for making fajitas, and he heated it on the cooktop. He told me that there would be a penalty for failing. And once the knife was red hot, he stuck the gun in his armpit and reached for the knife. But then he dropped the gun. The hostess paused. Guess which one I reached for? Tracing a path through the air from the kitchen to the couch, the hostess continued. I didn't even know where it landed, but he dropped the gun and ran when I took his thumb. I haven't seen him since. The party came to a slow and quiet end. The hostess thanked everyone for coming and hid the thumb with the gun. She'd have to top this story, naturally, but that was a plan for another day.